Hi, I'm Bob Cooper. I've been teaching outback safety and survival courses now for 41 years. In those decades, I've experienced land, sea and air mishaps myself, and I'm talking to Ann Ansell today, who's just survived through a survival situation up at Mount Augustus in Western Australia, and I'm going to hear how Ann did it and how she felt about it. Morning, Ann.
Good morning. Pleased to meet you, yes. Well, probably best to start with how we were there. We just decided, my husband and I, it sounds a bit royal, doesn't it, my husband and I, to go up to the northwest again because we do enjoy it up there. And we'd never done the crossroad from Meekatharra to Carnarvon, so we thought we would do that. So we went up to Meekatharra, across to Mount Augustus, where we were going to spend a couple of days, then go to Gascoyne Junction to do the Kennedy Ranges, and then across to Carnarvon. So we arrived safely at the camp at Mount Augustus the first night and sorted ourselves out for the next day. I would say in passing that I'd had a lot of difficulty in trying to access any information much about the sites on and around Mount Augustus. I'd gone into the various websites and either found they were not operating or I couldn't download stuff. So I relied on the fact largely that we'd end up at the campsite, which would surely have some information. And they didn't. They had one fold-out brochure, which came from what used to be Deepal, which they loaned us because it was the only copy they had. They hadn't been able to get any more. So that was a good start. So we decided the next morning, I should say we're not hikers, we are just people who are interested in wildlife, geology, general outdoor stuff and photography. So we had no intention of hiking any of the trails. We discovered that there was a ring road around Mount Augustus, so we thought we'd start off on that, spend the whole day going around, and then any of the side roads to car parks that looked interesting we'd go up and have a look at. Yes. So we started off, we did Cattle Pool and the Pound, and we didn't go very far up the Pound because the trail was very overgrown. There wasn't an awful lot to see, so we retraced our steps and then decided to go up the track which was to the, I think it's the Oombaloo Aboriginal caving trail. And we went up there, parked at the car park, just took the very small trail. It was only about 500 metres to the Aboriginal rock art, and had a look at that. And then my husband decided he'd go back to the car park because I just wanted to go a bit further on to the spring, the Edney Spring, which is the beginning of the Edney Trail, which goes up to one of the lookouts on the mountain. So that's how we came to be there. I just walked, oh gosh, it was not even 5 minutes to the spring. Right. And I was carrying my 2 cameras. I have a couple of Nikons, one of which has a 600mm lens, so it's my secret terrorist weapon as I go round. And I wanted to just go across to have a look at the spring in case there were any interesting birds or anything there. So it was very rocky, so my husband decided to go back to the car park. But we did say, laughing, he said, "You're only going to be about 10 minutes, aren't you?" And I said, "Tops." So I left him at 20 to 12, and he said, "Ha ha, if you're not back by 12, I'll sort out the search party." So I got to the spring at about 10 to 11, had a quick look at it. There was no water in there, and no birds, nothing. You could see the beginning of the Edney Trail because there was a big sort of signpost with the name on. And then I turned around to go back. And that's where the problem started, because it's very shiny rock. It was nearly midday, the sun was reflecting off it. And I was trying to see these blessed markers, which are just stickers on the rock. They're about that big. Yeah. And I found one, and I went up to that, and then I was trying to find the next one, and I couldn't see it anywhere. So I did a couple of circuits around it, and then thought, what do I do? Now, of course, the benefit of hindsight, what you do is sit there fat, dumb and happy and wait. Yeah. But I had this idea that because I could see the creek bed from the spring going in the direction of what I remember the car park being in, I thought, I'll just follow that down and I'll get back to the car park that way. And I fairly soon discovered that I'm not getting back to the car park that way. And that's really where it all started. I realised then that I was lost, and I'm not a panic type person, mercifully, so I thought there's no point panicking, let's just think about it. So I thought, for 3 reasons, I followed stream tracks. One, because with a monolith like, well, not a monolith, but a mountain like Mount Augustus, if you follow a stream bed down, you're eventually going to get to the perimeter.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. Second thing, which was going to be a lot cooler, because whatever shade there was going to be there.
It's going to be inside of it. Yeah.
And thirdly, you know, it was largely sandy bed, and I was hopeful that, you know, animals scrabble and maybe there'd be water around, which there wasn't. And I should point out probably that I was wearing sunscreen, big sun hat, sensible lace-up shoes, knee-length shorts, carrying 2 cameras, didn't have water because we just had a cup of coffee and a litre of water at the car park, and of course I was expecting to be 10-15 minutes. So, and that's where it started. So really for the rest of the time, that day I followed the stream bed. I'd occasionally climb up higher up to try and get a bearing on where I was to make sure I was going in roughly the right direction. And when it came to about 5:30 and starting to be moving towards sunset, I thought, well, if I'm sensible, I'll get out of the stream bed before it gets dark and get as high as I can to see if when it got dark I could see any lights or anything going on. So that's what I did. Climbed up this fairly reasonable rock face and found a big tree which had lots of leaf litter on it, under it, so I sort of put that all together to try and make a slightly more comfortable bed. And that's where I sort of settled down for the night. Didn't sleep very much because the leaf litter, unfortunately, I hadn't realised it had an ant's nest. So I had ants crawling all over me in the middle of the night. But largely, I passed my time just looking at the stars, because there's also stars up there. The view is just stunning. And I thought, you know, if I can see the Southern Cross, I can again orient myself and make absolutely sure I knew where I was going. And the creek bed from which I climbed up was pretty much going in the direction of the lights. So I thought, well, that's the way to go when I get down in the morning. So it was a rather uncomfortable night, as you can imagine, because the rock is not very forgiving. The good thing about it is that, of course, being iron rock, it was still very warm. So I didn't have much problem with being cold overnight, which is good, other than a breeze that came up about midnight just for a couple of hours. So next day I sort of shuffled down on my backside all the way back to the creek bed and made my way very slowly in the direction of the creek bed. I had the day before deliberately stopped every half an hour or so to get into shade, proper shade, preferably under a rock overhang, to try and cool down and have a bit of rest. By day 2, which was the Saturday, I was doing that every 15 minutes because I was beginning to feel rather tired. And of course the particular rock underhangs were lovely and cool, so that helped a lot. But I did learn to put my cameras to show me the way out, because a couple of times I woke up a bit disoriented and I thought, did I come that way or did I come that way, when the stream bed was fairly flat. So putting the cameras there, I could sort of follow my way and make sure I didn't retrace my steps. So that really followed on until about 1 o'clock, I suppose, on that second day. And then the stream bed was getting deeper and deeper, and it was becoming a small sort of gorge. And I saw up on my left-hand side, quite weird, it looked like 4 concrete steps. And I thought, well, why would somebody have 4 concrete steps? And I thought, well, maybe somebody's been working up there and they've chucked something over the edge. So I thought, well, I'll go up and have a look, because it's time for an orientation from a high spot anyway. And I climbed up and over the edge, and lo and behold, there was this pathway with white stones each side of it. And I thought, wow, if nothing else, I can walk my way out of this. So I got over the edge, and I was pretty tired after climbing up, found a tree a couple of 100 yards down, sat down again for a bit of a break. A couple of little Cessnas from the stations went over. Mum was very close, so I thought, well, I'll go out and wave, and they didn't pay any attention, so I thought, I'll take my t-shirt off and wave that, because it was a pale one, but that didn't work either. very shortly after that, there was this shout. These 4 guys come over the ridge and say, "Are you Anne?" And I said, yes, it was the TRG. They'd found me. So that was great. And they were absolutely thrilled to bits to find somebody alive, because of course over the last year they'd had about 5 deaths on the mountain, and they were getting a bit tired of doing just a retrieval rather than a rescue. So they took me down in the of course the plastic mobile stretcher, which was something else. Very effective. They got the ambulance there already, so they checked me over to make sure that I was still fairly compos mentis and okay. And I was fine, other than being obviously a bit dehydrated. And the interesting thing to me throughout the whole sort of experience was I never felt hungry.
No.
And I didn't really feel thirsty. My mouth felt dry, but I didn't feel that parched sort of thirst you get on a hot summer's day.
It had been resting, which is what people don't do. They tend to panic for...
No, I thought it was best to pace myself and just make sure that I had the rest and keep my body as functional as possible.
That sounds emotionally sensible. So most people in that situation, they panic and they even start to run in that temperature, and that's what can be devastating.
Not a good plan. Not a good plan at all. Interesting that enough, they had sent the Canberra plane over with the Fleur, and I think it was about midnight, and they didn't find me. They found 2 kangaroos and a police car. And I said to them, it was probably because the rock was so warm and my body was cooling down, because it was, of course, retreating to the core temperature. And I probably would have been more obvious as a shadow than as a heat source. So they never found me. One of the drones was there when I was found, so they took the drone up to take some shots of that. But so I was checked out at the local nursing station at Baringarrow, and they decided that, although they were thinking of flying me out in the Flying Doctor, I said, look, if I'm okay, I'd rather not, because that's a resource that should really be kept for people who really, really need it. Anyway, they said, well, if you're good and you drink enough and you do the right things, we'll let you go back to the camp for the night. So that's what happened. And then eventually, 2 days later, we got to Carnarvon, where I had to go to the emergency department for them to check me over. And of course, they were picking, I had scratches all over me. I had very bloody legs, excuse the expression, and bloody arms, which was a relief in that it kept the flies away from my face, which was good. But I was not a pretty sight. I was sort of, dark brown with blood and dust. And when I got to Carnarvon, they were picking bits of twig out of me, because, of course, the bush was so dry. Every time I fell or pushed against something, I'd get something in me. And this actually is the last one. They had to actually surgically take this one out the other day. So I have a few scars at the moment, but there we go. So I'm very happy to talk about it, because I think it's really important to share that, so that people have some idea of what it's really like to be.
How did you emotionally feel at the start of it?
When I first discovered I was lost, so I didn't panic. I wasn't scared. I was just more annoyed than anything that I couldn't find the markers. And then it was more a question of, I suppose, working out some sort of plan to best try and find my way back.
Yeah, most people don't. They don't plan things out. And they get emotional overload, and they start to worry about the fear of embarrassment and the fear of not seeing loved ones again, and the fear of dehydration, the fear of death, the fear of being alone, and the fear of nature as well, which you're not scared of native wildlife. That's when you went to film. Well,
that's right. And I suppose, to pick up on those points, yes, I do enjoy the outdoors. I do enjoy nature. I'm very happy around animals and birds and things like that. And also, both of my husband and myself, because we went to the dreaded boarding school in England, grew up to be fairly self-sufficient. So we're not people who rely heavily on other people as such. We are, relatively self-motivated, self-sufficient, and so we get off our rear ends and do things rather than sitting there going, what am I going to do?
Well, you're one of the few people that have been lost that doesn't get emotional about all those things.
No.
And there's a left and right side of your brain. One side's emotional, the other side's rational, and most people get this overload of emotion, irrational emotions that flood over the rational side of it. They start to run, they don't know where they're going, but they're running there. They haven't got a plan. Plans don't usually fail, which has happened in your case. Keep walking down, and you've got to hit that ring road.
That's right,
Mount Augustus.
that
Must do.
That was really my logic, certainly. Yeah.
And gaining height and looking for lights and all those things are sensible. There's been a couple of people who have perished that didn't think that way. They just got too many fears, and it's driven them to do some stuff that, when you're outside of the environmental situation, it doesn't make sense.
No.
And dehydration, because you behaved yourself and didn't do anything except rest, and when you got hotter, you sat in 100% shade. And I've seen people on exercises when we did some documentaries, the person got worried about it and just lay down in the middle of the sun, and then on that iron ore rock as well, so that's in the middle of the day.
Gosh.
I went up to him and said, "Do you realise you're laying in the middle of the sun?" He was just so upset about other things. They didn't think rationally. He said, "There's a tree there, it'd be a much better idea to go and lay under the tree than in the middle of the sun."
Absolutely, yeah.
And you didn't do any of that, and apart from not taking any water, and then the other things you could take, obviously a small compass and a survival kit of some sort. Did you have a day pack with your cameras in?
No, I didn't have a day pack, no, because so we'd only originally intended to go to the Aboriginal Arch, which was 500 metres away. We just had coffee and water, and the spring was very little further. It was about 200 metres beyond that. So at that stage, given that there were supposed to be markers, I didn't see that was a big issue.
No.
When my husband came back to look for me, he brought water with him, obviously, because he knew that something had happened. But he quickly realised there was not much that he could do, because he shouted. I didn't hear anything the whole time of the rescue. It was quite weird, because they were out shouting. They had drones up. They had the police cars hooting their horn every minute or so. Lights. I saw and heard nothing, which was quite interesting. So, although I shouted occasionally, I thought it was probably a bit feeble. But
not a bad idea.
No. Particularly when I was up high, I thought shouting at a gorge would not be very profitable, probably. So no, I didn't have a day pack with me, although we did have them in the vehicle, but it was if you like, a judgment call, because we were not intending to do trekking or anything like that. But I guess it's it's that thing about I'd do it next time, just in case. Not that I'm planning to do it next time.
Apart from being annoyed, did you have any fear at all?
Not really. I mean, I had a sort of deadline. I thought if they haven't found me in 24 hours, then I'm probably looking at some, not so nice outcomes. But I was fairly confident, given the size of the terrain, that I would hit the ring road or a car park road before that.
So you just stayed positive.
Yeah. But no, I didn't feel frightened at any stage up until I was found, no. I mean, a couple of times afterwards you sit there and you think, wow, what if? But that doesn't help very much.
And how did you feel when you were found?
Oh, when I saw those guys come over the ridge and say you ran, it was like, yay! Very pleased. I don't know who's more pleased, actually, them or me. But it was a wonderful feeling, and particularly good when they said, "Oh, and you found the trail," because I said, "Yes, I have." They said, "You'd probably have been all right," which was great too. So it was a sort of affirmation that I'd been on the right line. But yes, it was an interesting experience going down on the stretcher, because, as I say, they're a plastic shell and they're not the most comfortable of things. And they found it difficult to find their way back down, I have to say, which was interesting. And when I got down to the nursing tent, they sort of fed me up with ice cubes to start with, so that I didn't overdrink in terms of rehydrating. But my face was so hot, they said, "Would you like some water on your face?" And I got a whole mugful. So I was lying there with sodden air and a lovely cool face, and then somebody else put a load of ice cubes on my midriff. And although it was lovely and cooling, what they didn't realise, and I didn't realise until they moved me into the ambulance, is that, of course, this is a plastic shell, stretcher, and there's no holes in it. So by the time I got into the ambulance, I was half sort of drowning. So I was very wet and cold by the time I got to the nursing station. But yeah, so there were some funny bits of it, I have to say. But the guys were great. They really were. I mean, you know, I can't thank the rescue people enough. They were so professional, so friendly. The homestead had a barbecue for them that night that I was found. So they had all of the search and rescue people who were left there and all of the people who were at the campsite, just to, you know, give everybody a chance to unwind and, you know, have a chat about it. And although all I wanted to do was crawl to bed, I did go out for half an hour because I thought I've got to go and give my thanks and give them a chance to, you know, ask what they wanted to ask me. And they have done, I mean, I've done debriefs with Geraldton Police because that's where the search was organised from. Jason Goch, who you might know down at Maylands, yourself, of course, and there's somebody else I can't think about now. And of course they are doing a coronial inquiry, so I had to do a big statement for that.
It's a nice one for change. No one perished. Yeah.
Yeah, so well, they said to me somewhat tongue-in-cheek, it'd be useful to have your testimony because you're the only one who came back alive. So you can give us some ideas of, you know, the issues, particularly with the signage, which were very poor signage problems. So, yes, so DPAW had a discussion with me, but yes, it'd be interesting to see what happens with that one.
Something with you every time you go for a walk. Take us some sort of survival kit, emergency kit that fits into your day pack, or a little bag that take with you, and a good rescue blanket that I'll design one that spells the word help.
Yeah.
That you could lay out, lay on, lay under during the middle of the day, particularly in keeping the sun off and the signals at the same time.
Yeah.
And 3 elastic bandages which are used for snake bite treatment because that's the only animal in our West Australian bush, apart from a crocodile, that can stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, of course.
And those bandages, I was hesitant to call them snake bite bandages because you could use them to wrap around your arms to stop you getting scratched by bushes around your legs, to stop being scratched. Multi-use. And bleeding and all sorts of stuff.
I mean, the thing I did consider, but I rejected, and that was trying to light a fire. Because I thought up there it's so tinder dry, I might end up roasting myself before I was found. So I dismissed that one very quickly, I have to say. Yeah, but other than that, no, I tell you what you're saying, and certainly we usually have got a small backpack, that's the silly thing about it, but you know, it's just one of those judgment calls.
The survival kit that I designed is a whistle, so you can blow that at people and be heard a lot more than shouting. And a mirror for signalling to flames. For signalling,
yeah. In fact, I thought afterwards I could possibly have used even the flash on my camera. I thought about that afterwards, but you know, 2020 hindsight is wonderful, isn't it? But the whistle, interestingly enough, I said to the police, I'm surprised you don't carry whistles.
Yes, or a horn, one of those pressure-packed horns that you blow every now and again. They can get a lot better than a whistle.
Yeah. So, and also whether they could use the drones more. Whether they don't use drones with maybe some sort of voice over on them to, you know, if they do locate people, to be able to say, well, stay there, we know where you are now, you know, or whatever. So I think there are a few things that come out of it. I mean, I've said to the search people, you know, as ideas come to me, I'm just jotting them down and then I chuff them off to them. So they've got a sort of running list of things that, from my perspective, I would have found helpful.
And can the drone carry a water bottle that they could pop?
I don't know. I think the bigger ones can carry something, but whether it be something as heavy as water, I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I know they do have, down at Maylands, they have a sort of drone unit now, and they're sort of developing a lot more to see, you know, how they can work in a whole range of scenarios for search and rescue, which is good to hear, really. Yeah, so that really was my little adventure, not about to be repeated. I was so achy the next day I couldn't move hardly because I'd been climbing up and down, you know, over rocks, and so I'd got all these scratches and scars. So I spent a very quiet day, and we decided not to call in at the Kennedy Ranges. We just went straight to Carnarvon and had a very quiet few days recovering. So yeah, but I was very lucky at the outcome.
Very fortunate, not lucky.
Well, fortunate, thank you. Yes.
I wrote a book several years ago about my adventures and also hints on survival, and I've signed it for you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very
I'd
much.
like you to read that and
I can.
take the knowledge with you next time.
Safe travels. Very appropriate.
More safe travels.
More safe travels. Oh, that's a lovely thought. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will certainly read that, and outback driving too. My husband will enjoy that. That would be great. Absolutely wonderful.
And we've got another gift for you as well.
Oh, goodness me.
So the guys at Zolio, which is a satellite communication tool.
Oh, wow.
So it works anywhere in the world. And it's got an SOS function and a check-in button as well.
Oh, brilliant.
So they've told me I can give you one of these.
That's lovely.
And
Thank you so
there's a 3-month
much.
subscription to it as well.
Excellent.
And there's a bit of a brochure on it
Brochure. Wow.
as well. So
That's cool.
I'll talk you through how to set that up later on.
Absolutely. Thank
And
you.
there's a selection of magazines.
Oh,
for you
lovely.
to,
That would be
to have a
great.
look at as
Oh,
well.
that'll keep us both amused and interested. Yeah, because, having been retired now, so we're doing more of the four-wheel driving stuff. And, Jeff always reads the magazines. So that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Really appreciate that. Oh, all this heavy reading, literally. But that's really nice. I appreciate it very much.
Is there any sort of training that you would like to have or recommend to have for people wandering out yonder prior to going out yonder?
Well, I think
And you're an exception. You like nature,
Yeah.
and you understand nature, and obviously you have some rationale. It's more prominent than emotion.
I think there are a couple of sides to this, Bob. One would be, it does concern me a bit that, particularly with COVID, the WA tourism people have been, wildly saying, "Oh, go out, explore your state," without any sort of caveat about where you go and what you might need to consider if you're going there. It's been a bit cavalier. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really do your homework. People need to learn to do research. I mean, we research as a matter of interest, literally and metaphorically, because we want to get the most out of where we're going, but we also want to get as many hints, ideas about conditions and things like that. And the other thing I think is also, again, I suppose it's the advertising thing. Four-wheel drives now, or all-wheel drives, are fashionable. And the vast majority of people have no idea of what they're really designed for and what they can or should be used for. So I think there's really a bit of a sort of, it's almost like a team approach to say, well, look, tourism, vehicle sellers particularly, people like yourselves, four-wheel drive, they need to get some sort of concerted approach to sort of setting the scene for people who seriously want to go out into these things.
And when you leave your vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a different kettle of fish altogether.
And yes, just be, really a bit more realistic to them about what the conditions can be like, even if you're really well prepared, because anything can jump out and bite you. We had a tyre explode on the way from Mikithara to Mount Augustus, and we've had a few tyres go in our time, but this one just absolutely shredded. And that was a whole different experience, and fortunately we were able to manage it with a bit of help from somebody who came back with a sledgehammer. But, those unexpected things, however well prepared you think you might be, there's still something that might come out and bite you in the proverbial. So, no, I think it's a good question to ask, and I think it's something that, so there are certain sectors that ought to really consider it a bit more seriously. Yeah. The degree to which they might be unintentionally putting people at risk. And certainly you can't move past the people who think they know it all anyway, but one thing I found very frustrating was having tried to find things online about, the availability of tourist sites on Mount Augustus and so on. There was so little, and there were so many problems with the website, I could never print it off. So all I had was one panel out of the back of a Pilbara map, a full-size Pilbara map, that had a little thing about this big of Mount Augustus, showing the 6 or 7 car parks. And that's, for me, that's very frustrating, because I didn't have the preparation that I would have liked to A, be safe, and B, enjoy. And they're equally important, I think. Yeah.
And the other one with the planning is have a plan B when plan A doesn't work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then knowing how to navigate using the sun and the stars helps a hell of a lot. And that's going back to bushcraft, which you can lean on any time because it's there, the sun and the stars all the time. So
that's right.
You've got a compass which makes it easier, but you shouldn't have a compass until you can use the sun and the stars. And you shouldn't have a GPS until you can use the compass. You should be going the other way around.
That's right. Now, certainly the stars I found very useful because it was a beautiful moonless night, which was just lovely. And that helped me a lot because I just lay on the rocks and looked up at it and thought, I hope my husband is looking at this too. I bet he is, which he was, and it was about that bit of a connection, which was nice. Yeah. So there we go.
And your husband started the search off?
Yes, he came out first of all because of the 12 o'clock thing, and then when he didn't see or hear me, he went back to the car park and decided, he said he grabbed some water and came to do a little bit more of a search up round by the spring. And he did also meet some people who were coming down Edney's trail, so he was able to ask them if they'd seen me up there, which they hadn't. And so they were just doing a local search, shouting and sort of trying to search in what seemed to be fairly obvious routes, shall we say. But it was very difficult because, the bit between the Aboriginal art and the spring was just shiny rock. It's a bit like, the rock you have at Wave Rock, that very shiny.
Basalt.
And so once the sun was on that was a shocker. So they then decided fairly soon that, that they shouldn't really be doing any more, otherwise they'd be looking for more people than just me. So then they went back and set the alarm at the campsite, and they phoned out for help.
Yeah. Well, this was a story from Anne, and it was rationale over emotion, and also the lack of knowledge, because knowledge dispels fear, and the preparation that we need to take mentally and physically to go out for a walk anytime, anywhere. This time has ended up being a very positive outcome, but in the past at the same location this year has been quite tragic. So it was great to have a positive outcome. Thanks, Anne.
You're welcome, Bob. Lovely to
Pleasure.
talk to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.